What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get to in the world of volleyball, such as Penn State. They did it. They wound up winning the national championship. How did they do it, and who did they take down along the way in order to get to said national championship? Also, how about Arizona? Bear down as they took down Bowling Green in the NIVC. How special was it for the Wildcats to win it on their home floor? We've got some NCAA men's volleyball talk to discuss, and we have my NCAA women's volleyball tournament superlatives to give out as well. So hand me a volleyball. Step to next. So I'm about to serve you some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 278 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard. Make sure to follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers to the best of our ability. We're about over three-fifths of the way there, and with your help, we can make it happen. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our page dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, and our merchandise shop, where you can cop t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and so much more. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to build tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports teams around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to some of our sponsors, Plant Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and our new sponsor, Vital Apparel, which just recently was our new sponsor, as opposed to last week when they weren't our sponsor, but they are our sponsor. So let's actually get into what Plant Jerky and Vital Apparel is all about. So without any further delay, let's do this.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
And thank you to our official sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket, Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. We definitely appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And make sure to follow Setpoint on social media at set_point.ie, and as well as on Instagram at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me personally on social media at Teran Rodriguez 1 on X. And without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So first and foremost, we have to talk the NCAA Women's Volleyball National Semifinals and Championship. So it was definitely fun times watching it. I would have liked to have been in person just because, let's just say, KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky was rocking. It was loud. It was deafening. It was just everything and more. So first semifinal we had was Louisville versus Pitt. So it was the battle of two ACC teams. So no matter who won, we would get an ACC team in the national championship, which I think was awesome. So first set, Pitt got off to a little bit of a good start. It was pretty much tight throughout the first half of the set. And then Pitt really started to get things going. It was 15-14. And then eventually Pitt just started to pull away. They outscored their opponent 10 to it was actually 9-3, and eventually they had set point. But Louisville was not going away. The big thing about Louisville is they are scrappy, they are resilient, they are just everything and more. And they proved that their success was no accident. And I think it's safe to say that them getting scared in the second round was just I wouldn't say kind of a fluke, but I think that was just a little bit of a precaution or just a little bit of an over-exaggeration on everyone's part. But they made it close, but eventually Pitt took the first set 25-21. And then Pitt got off to another good start. But the thing about Louisville is they don't go away that quickly. They don't go away that fast. So eventually Louisville took the lead about midway through the set. And then eventually Pitt kind of retook the lead at 23. It was just tight in the red zone, or the quote-unquote red zone. So it was 23-22 in favor of Pitt, but then Louisville rattled off 3 straight points. The thing about Louisville that really impressed me not just this weekend, but throughout most of the tournament, was their serving. They served really tough, and that went a long way. So eventually Louisville took the second set 25-23. So what was once looking like Pitt was going to go up 2-0 and be one set away from being in the national championship, now it's a whole different ball game. And this was kind of the thing for Louisville in their regional quarterfinal against Stanford. They lost the first set. They wound up winning the second set. Third set, Pitt got off to a better start, and it looked like they were going to have their way, and it looked like they were going to take a 2-1 lead. Eventually, they led 23-19, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Louisville, unfortunately, they're going to have to win it in 5, kind of like they did 2 years ago in the national semifinals. But Louisville, being the so talented team that they were, they rattled off 4 straight points. I think it was 5 eventually, and it was just a seesaw battle. And eventually, Louisville took that third set 29-27. Man, that if there was ever a set where Pitt needed to win, it was that set. They needed to win that set, but unfortunately, they did not. And now Pitt was down 1. They were down 2-1 to Louisville on the road, mind you. Keep in mind, this was taking place at the KFC Yum Center, and Louisville was the host for the semifinals and national championship. So, yeah, that was the big concern. And they had never been down 2-1 in a match this season. So this was unfamiliar territory for Pitt. Then came set 4. Louisville got off to a good start, but about like the early stages of the set, it happened. Anna DeBeer unfortunately went down with, I think it was like a knee injury. It looked like it was a knee injury. And that was where everything just got flipped up. It looked like everything was going to get flipped upside down for Louisville, and that Pitt was probably going to, it was like they were going to like have their way and force a fifth set. But thankfully for Louisville, they brought in Peyton Peterson, a freshman who hadn't really seen too much time. She got to see some time this season, but not too much time. So eventually she did enter the game. She managed to get a few good serves in, and she managed to put down, I think, 2 kills. Either way, she made such a big impact, and that was big right there. Yeah, she had 2 kills and 2 service aces, and she was the straw that stirred the drink. And in a match where you need one more set to advance to the national championship on your home floor without your star player, Louisville rose to the occasion. They really flustered Pitt and eventually took that 4th set, 25-17. That was the set score. I'm not kidding. That was the set score for Louisville. They wound up winning that set without their star player for most of the set, and they advanced to the national championship. So here are the numbers. Louisville was led by Anna DeBeer, Sophia Maldonado-Diaz, and Charity Looper, each having 14 kills. Cara Cressy had 9 kills. Like I mentioned, Peyton Peterson, she might have been the unsung hero for that match. She had only 2 kills and 2 service aces to go along with 4 digs, but she was fantastic. She was not nervous. She looked like she had ice in her veins, and she was definitely an unsung hero. And then in terms of the assists, we had Nayelis Cabello having 44 assists, as well as 2 aces. Louisville really shined in terms of the serving game. They had 8 service aces and only 4 service errors. They had 54 digs and hit a whopping 320. Even though Pitt hit 316, Louisville still had those good numbers, which I thought was pretty impressive. For Pitt, they were led by Olivia Babcock, who had 33 kills. She eventually was named the ABCA's Division I NCAA Women's Volleyball Player of the Year, which I thought was a really good feather in her cap. Tori Stafford had 18 kills. Valeria Vasquez Gomez had 8 kills. Bree Kelly, 7 kills. Ryla Jones, 2 kills. The reason why I say that is because I really would have liked to have seen Pitt go into the middle more, because Bree Kelly is a fantastic middle, and Ryla Jones was kind of getting her sea legs as well. Whereas Louisville, they had 9 kills in the middle from Cara Cressy. PK Kong had 7 kills, which that eventually adds up to 16. So Louisville nearly doubled Pitt in terms of kills in the middle. But eventually, Pitt only had 2 service aces, even though they were serving aggressively. They had 64 digs, which wasn't bad. Rachel Fairbanks had 53 assists. But unfortunately, it was just not enough. Ralph Cleese pops into the chat room. He says, "Good evening, Terry. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family and the crew at Set Point." Well, I'm just one person, but thank you, Ralph. He says, "Have a great show." Well, thank you, Ralph. Salute to you. And as we all know, Ralph is the host of our Pittsburgh show, The Yins Report, and he has this to say. He says, "Sad to see Pitt exit the way that they did, but Louisville proved they belonged there for sure." Yeah, and this is the same Louisville team that wound up nearly getting taken out by Northern Iowa in the second round. And had that happened, then I think possibly Stanford would have been hosting the regionals. Not entirely sure, but yeah, that was just wild right there. And yeah, Louisville did belong there for sure. So that was the first semifinal. Heading on to the other semifinal, being Nebraska and Pitt. This is the battle of two Big Ten conference teams. We would get to see a Big Ten conference team in the national championship. How fitting. But first set, it was another back and forth set. Now, Nebraska is the type of team that is well known for making late comebacks. Honestly, they were not going to go down without a fight. The Penn State being the ever so scrappy team that they are, they managed to build themselves a nice little lead. I don't remember how much they were up, but they were up late in the set. I think they were up like 23-20. And then eventually Nebraska ended the set on a 5-0 run where they eventually took the set 25-23. And that's the scary thing if you're facing Nebraska. Nebraska is never really out of it. It's like if they're down 3, that's practically nothing for Nebraska. And you really have to put Nebraska away ASAP. So they took that set. The second set was pretty much a little bit more handled by Nebraska as they took it 25-18. They eventually led 2-0 in the match, and the pressure was on for Penn State. Keep in mind Nebraska was my pick to win the whole thing. And yeah, it was looking like Nebraska was going to handle Penn State. Keep in mind Nebraska did beat Penn State beat Nebraska in the only meeting that in the two teams that they had in the regular season. So the third set, Penn State looks like the Penn State that belonged in the national championship, or not the national championship, the national semifinals. Even though they had to survive a late comeback from Nebraska, Nebraska just could not catch up to Penn State as Penn State took that third set 25-23. Then the fourth set, something special happened. Teran Rodriguez became the all-time dig leader for Nebraska, which I thought was awesome sauce. She surpassed Justine Wong-Orontes for most digs at Nebraska, which she was in the house for that feat. And also Justine Wong-Orontes was a Olympic medalist for the U.S. national team. She won gold, silver, and bronze, I think. But back to the match at hand, Nebraska eventually led for the most part. They led 22-16, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's going to be we're going to be seeing Ren in the national championship. But eventually, Penn State just kept working their way back, just taking it 1 point at a time. They were down 24-22, and eventually they got a kill, which I thought should have been challenged by John Cook. I thought John Cook should have challenged this point, but he did not, and he just said, let's win the next point. But unfortunately for Nebraska, they did not win the next point. Penn State won the next point. It's tied 24-24. The two teams eventually battled to 26-26, and then Penn State had set point and eventually put the ball down, courtesy of Jess Merzick. So Penn State was battled 2 match points from Nebraska, came back, and keep in mind they were down 6 late in the fourth set, and eventually took it 28-26. So I gotta give it up to Penn State. They really proved that they belong in the national semifinals. Then in the fifth set, Penn State got off to a 5-2 lead. They eventually led 8-5. I think 3, if not 4, was the biggest lead for Penn State, but Nebraska was not going away. Like, Nebraska is, again, they're the type of team that is never really out of it. Like, any deficit that is not like 10 points or so, that's nothing Nebraska can't handle. And every time they serve, it feels like that ball's going to take forever to drop. And sometimes it'll drop just like that, and then suddenly it'll be an ace. Or sometimes they'll just catch the serve receiving team off guard, and then suddenly it'll just shank into the crowd. So, yeah, Nebraska eventually was down 14-11. They managed to rattle off 2 straight points. So suddenly Penn State had match point only up 1, but they eventually put it down. I don't remember who put it down, but I think it was like Cameron Hanna who put the ball down off the block. And suddenly Penn State was off to the national championship for the first time since 2014. So 10 years in the making, and the magical run for Penn State and their head coach, Katie Schumacher-Colley, who is battling stage 2 breast cancer, was still going. So just going to pop this right here. Ba-bam. There's your set scores for both matches. Penn State was led by Jess Merzick, who had 26 kills. The 26 kills actually gave her over 2,000 career kills. That's with her time at Penn State and with her time at Michigan. Merzick also chipped in 12 digs, which I thought was pretty cool as well. Caroline Jervicius, who faced her former team, she had 20 kills. She was another unsung hero right there. Caroline Jervicius was another unsung hero, and I thought she did an excellent job. And one thing I'm happy for Caroline Jervicius is that she's thriving. She's in a big role. It's nothing against Nebraska and what happened there, but I'm happy she's thriving in her new role at Penn State. I think it's just fitting that she would have this big game against her former team. and you got to remember that Caroline Trevicius's dad was a former NFL player, and I think he went to Penn State too. So there's that right there. Cameron Hanna had 16 kills to go along with 8 digs. Trevicius also had only 2 digs. Izzy Stark had 11 digs to go along with 56 assists. They also got 25 digs from Gillian Grimes, who also had 9 assists. Penn State as a team, they hit a whopping 242, while Nebraska hit 262. Speaking of those Huskers, they were led by Harper Murray, who had 20 kills. Andy Jackson had 19 kills. She was strong in the middle, in my opinion. Taylor Landfair added 10 kills. Merritt Beeson was surprisingly quiet. She had only 8 kills, which I kind of wonder if maybe if she had gotten more kills, maybe Nebraska could have won. But they wanted to spread the love, and that's the big unique thing about Nebraska. They have not just one hitter, but multiple hitters. Rebecca Alec also had 8 kills for Nebraska as well. They got 15 digs from Bergen Riley, who had 55 assists. They also got 15 digs from Lexi Rodriguez and 15 digs from Harper Murray. Unfortunately, it was just not enough as Nebraska fell. Look, I'm just going to say this right now. I feel bad for Nebraska. I feel heartbroken for Nebraska that they wound up losing in the national semifinals via a reverse sweep. It had been a long time since Nebraska had gotten reverse swept, not just in a match, but in the national semifinals or in an NCAA tournament match. So, yeah, it's a tough end for Nebraska, but they should have taken care of business in the 4th set. They had their chances in set 4, but unfortunately, they just couldn't put it down. And maybe John Cook should have challenged the call at 24-22 to see if the block was actually off of a Penn State player. I mean, if anything, it could have served as a little bit of a mini timeout, or could have iced Penn State's next server. So unfortunately, we're never going to see what would have happened if John Cook had challenged, but maybe he was saving his challenges for later. But I digress. All right, so the national championship was set. It was Louisville and Penn State for the national championship. Rematch of earlier in the season as Penn State swept Louisville in the early season matchup. But this time it was a little bit more different as Penn State did take the first set 25-23. Penn State, if I recall correctly, Penn State was up 24-19. Eventually Louisville managed to get to the point where they were only down 1, but Penn State shut the door on them. Actually, I think it was tied 23-23. I'm thinking of set 2, but it was 23-23. Penn State gets a kill, and then Penn State eventually shuts the door with a service ace. So Penn State took that first set. So second set, Penn State got off to another good start. Louisville, being the scrappy and talented team that is hosting the national championship, managed to make a little bit of a comeback. This was the set where Penn State was up 24-19. Eventually, Louisville rattled off 5 straight points to tie it. And after a bunch of rallies and a bunch of craziness that happened in that second set later, Louisville took that second set 34-32. That might have been the set of the year right there. That was the set of the year. I don't know if there was another set that surpassed 34-32. I want to say Tennessee and Georgia Tech played a set to 34-32 in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So you have that right there. Then the third set, Penn State got off to a much better start. But unlike last set, they didn't allow Louisville to make any sort of comeback as they took that third set 25-20. I should also mention that Anna DeVere was dressed out for Louisville, but she did not play. So that was a big loss right there. So not having Anna DeVere really sucked. And then the fourth set, Penn State got off to a hot start. They eventually led 10-2. And at that point, it was just nervous time for Louisville. Louisville did do a good job of keeping themselves in a set. They didn't get blown out ultimately, but eventually just Penn State just poured it on. And they took the fourth set 25-17 off of a kill from Cameron Hanna. And eventually championship number 8 is coming back to Penn State. And what a way for Penn State to win it. First and foremost, Penn State won championship number 8, their first in 10 years. They also made history with their head coach, Katie Schumacher-Colley, being the first female coach to win an NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I national championship. So great job to Katie Schumacher-Colley. I should also mention that it was an all-female coach national championship in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I, which I thought was very special. And then Penn State wound up winning the national championship in a true road game. Yes, it was a true road game. Got to remember that this match took place at the KFC Yum Center, which was hosted by Louisville. So the fact that Louisville was hosting and Penn State managed to win it all was straight phenomenal. And Louisville was in said national championship. Anyway, Penn State was led by Jess Mersick, who had 29 kills. She also had 14 digs, which I thought was incredible. Cameron Hanna had 19 kills. Jess Mersick was named the most outstanding player of the tournament. And then Jess Mersick was named most outstanding player of the tournament. Cameron Hanna had 19 kills. I think she also made all tournament. Gillian Grimes also made all tournament. She paced the Penn State defense with 16 kills, which led that in that department. Penn State had 5 different players with 10 plus kills. They held Louisville to under 200. Penn State as a team hit 277. Caroline Gervicius, who I kind of think she was a snub for all tournament. She had 10 kills, but you can't really have too many players from said team on all tournament because they got to get one player from the team that lost in the semifinal, 2 teams that lost in the national championship, or 2 players from a team that lost in the national championship, a player that lost on a team that lost in the national semifinals, and then 3 players from the winning team, which is a standard starting 7. And then 1 player gets the most outstanding player, which also makes the all tournament. Anyway, for Louisville, they were led by Charity Looper, who had 21 kills. Sofia Maldonado Diaz had 20 kills. That was pretty much it in terms of the two-headed monster. The next kill leader for Louisville was Cara Cressy and Peyton Peterson, both having 4 kills. Elena Scott had 24 kills, which I thought was impressive. Or I'm sorry, not 24 kills, 24 digs. Louisville ran a little bit of a 6-2 with Ellie Glock and Naelis Cabello. Cabello had 31 assists to go along with 10 digs. Glock had 11 digs. Peterson also did chip in 10 digs. So the future is bright for Louisville. Unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be, as Penn State wound up winning the national championship. And congratulations to them, as bam, there's your final set scores. And it's championship number 8, and they wound up winning it in Louisville, Kentucky, which Louisville was the host of the national semifinals and national championship. So the attendance in the NCAA Women's Volleyball National Semifinals were 21,276. That should actually be 726. So we're just going to fix that just a little quick. I thought I had saved this, but not really. StreamYard is meh. So yeah, 21,726 were in attendance for the national semifinals. And that is actually an NCAA semifinal record, which I thought was pretty darn cool if you ask me. Really makes me wish I could have been in attendance for this, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. So as for the attendance for the national championship, 21,860, a new national championship record in women's volleyball, which I thought is pretty darn good. Great job to Louisville getting the word out to people to attend this and basically promoting this whole national championship. So great job to Louisville for hosting. Great job to everyone that made this thing happen. And there were over 1 million viewers for the national semifinals. So both national semifinals were on ESPN, and it capped out at 1.4 million viewers. I think they both had 1.2 million viewers, which I thought was really cool. And at the end of the Penn State-Nebraska match, SportsCenter didn't go right into the NFL, which had 1 game playing. They went straight to the highlights of the NCAA Women's Volleyball National Semifinal match. I think they just went into the Penn State-Nebraska highlights, but still, I think that's a great touch by ESPN to give NCAA Women's Volleyball the national spotlight and not pass it over to the NFL just because NFL is king and whatnot. But yeah, a great job to Louisville and ESPN. And I don't know the official numbers for the NCAA Women's Volleyball National Championship viewer numbers, but I will say making this NCAA Women's Volleyball season was so historic. It was so special, and everyone that did everything deserves a lot of credit. And yeah, I just guys. Well, and my final takes for Penn State Louisville. My takes for Louisville is this: look, despite not having Anna DeBeer, they did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, injuries are just part of the game of volleyball, and they're part of practically every sport. And sadly, Louisville really missed Anna DeBeer, but they had a fantastic season. Again, this was the same team that nearly got bounced in the second round by Northern Iowa, but then they wound up using that as motivation. They didn't look back on that. I think that might have been the turning point of their season. That or them losing to Pitt and Stanford in the regular season week finale, where they eventually wound up getting revenge on both those teams. So you could make the argument of which was the turning point. If not, maybe there was another turning point in Louisville's season, but Louisville deserves a lot of credit for getting back there. I'm sure they will be back. I know they'll lose Anna DeBeer and Elena Scott to graduation, but those two will be doing it big in the Pro Volleyball Federation or perhaps LOVB. And their future is still bright. I'm certain. Oh, yeah, and they also lose PK Kong to graduation as well. But I'm certain Louisville will be back on the big stage. Same with Penn State. Penn State, I mean, the fact that might as well just jump into my takeaway for Penn State. It's this. Those players deserve a lot of credit. Izzy Stark, only a freshman. She was fantastic at the center position. She had ice in her veins. Gillian Grimes, she should be back at the libero position for Penn State. Jess Merzick in her final game as a Penn State Nittany Lion, she was fantastic. Caroline Trevicius is going to be a blossoming star. Cameron Hanna will be going off to the Pro Volleyball Federation. She had a fantastic game and a fantastic volleyball career after transferring from Clemson. And the list is going to go. And Taylor Trammell, I also got to give love to Taylor Trammell. Yeah, that's another thing for the all-tournament team. There were no middle blockers, which shocked me, to say the least. But there was a libero. Hashtag justice for liberos. But anyway, yeah, that was a fantastic NCAA women's volleyball tournament, a fantastic NCAA women's volleyball season. And yeah, the fact that there was history made was absolutely amazing. So that's that for the NCAA women's volleyball season. There will be some NCAA women's volleyball transfer news, as I think most of y'all know. There's been juicy transfers that have been happening, like Eva Hudson transferring from Purdue to Kentucky. You have Kaylin Alexander transferring from Hawaii over to Missouri, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into all of the transfers right away, but I will get into them once all the dust is settled. Like, all the dust needs to settle from the NCAA women's volleyball season, and we need to basically just take a little bit of a week off or so from all of this craziness and whatnot. Because let me just say, that was fun. Thursday was just so fun in terms of like NCAA women's volleyball. Heck, I can go as far as to say that might have been the best week ever in terms of like NCAA women's volleyball national semifinals. But I could be wrong though. All right, but that is that for the NCAA women's volleyball portion of the show. We're actually going to circle the wagons and get back to NCAA women's volleyball a little bit later, but we're actually going to take our first commercial break. We'll actually go into our other few sponsors, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. And we also need to talk about what iSports Radio is all about, which has been on the air for 10 years. But when we come back from this commercial break from our sponsors, we will discuss some NIVC women's volleyball, where Arizona took on Bowling Green. And I'll give out my superlatives for the NCAA women's volleyball tournament. And then I'll discuss a little bit of some NCAA men's volleyball. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there! there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, as well as Vital Apparel and Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for everything that is fun and sports, especially for Set Point. I definitely would appreciate if you all did. All right, but let's get back on into that volleyball action. So let's recap some NIVC action. So in the NIVC, we had Arizona knocking off Bowling Green in a 5-set thriller. So first set, it could have gone either way. There were 11 ties, 4 lead changes. But Bowling Green, being the talented team that they are, coming out of the MAC conference, they were able to take that first set 29-27. And I thought that was kind of the thing that set the tone early. I was thinking, this is bad. And keep in mind, Arizona was the host for this NIVC championship. So you had that right there. But in the second set, Arizona responded very nicely. Even when Green Bay gave them their best shot, Arizona was able to take their best shot and throw it right back at them. And eventually, Arizona held on to win the second set 25-23, evening the match at 1-1. Then the third set, Bowling Green just got off to a little bit of a better start. They just made sure they stayed ahead and just did not give Arizona any room to operate and force a comeback. They eventually took the third set 25-18, and suddenly they were up 2-1 the match, and they were one set away from the NIVC championship. But you got to remember, this is Arizona we're talking about. This is a team that debatably could have made the NCAA tournament. They were probably the first one out of the NCAA women's volleyball tournament, which really sucks, but Arizona really got hot as the set progressed. Even when Bowling Green tried to make a comeback, the Wildcats did find a way to maintain and strengthen their lead. Eventually, they won the fourth set 25-17, forcing that all-decisive fifth set. I'm just going to say this right now. Almost every NCAA, every four-year collegiate championship went 5 sets. We had NCAA Division III national championship going 5 with Juniata and Wisconsin Whitewater. We had the NCAA Division II national championship going 5 with Lynn and San Francisco State. We had Indiana Wesleyan and Bellevue of Nebraska going 5 sets in the NAIA national championship. And then the NIVC, we had the NIVC going 5 sets. Unfortunately, NCAA Division I didn't want to give us that 5-set matchup between Louisville and Penn State, but it is what it is. But in the 5th set, Arizona got off to such a blistering start. This kind of reminded me of the Wisconsin Whitewater Juniata 5th set match, which if you didn't watch, go do so right now. After this show, of course. But Arizona just got off to a hot start. They never looked back, and they eventually won the 5th set 15-9. They just served so aggressively as Jalen Hodge led the way with 25 kills. She also added 7 digs. Jordan Wilson had 18 kills to go along with 8 digs and a service ace. Arizona also got 8 kills from Carly Cisneros and Ayanna Johnson, both having 8 and 7 kills respectively. Arizona hit 227 as a team while holding Bowling Green to under 200, well under 200 for that matter, as they hit only 169. Arizona really blocked the ball well as they had 15 blocks compared to Bowling Green 7. And the digs were in favor of Bowling Green, just barely though, 68-64, not too shabby. Mia Tyler had 18 kills, while Lauren Hovey added 17 kills. Bowling Green also got 8 kills and 7 kills respectively from Jessica Andrews and Alexis Matile. Alexis Matile. She had 7 kills. Jessica Andrews had 8 kills. So in terms of the digs, Lauren Hovey led that department with 19 digs to go along with those 17 kills. You also had Lindsay LaPinta adding 15 digs, and you also had Sydney Hernandez having 11 digs to go along with, that's it, just 11 digs. And then in terms of assists, Amanda Otten had 8 digs to go along with 43 assists. For Arizona, they got 54 assists from Avery Scogins, who also chipped in 2 kills. So let's be honest with ourselves. Arizona deserved to be in the NCAA tournament. I'm sorry, but Arizona deserved the NCAA tournament. I don't care what anyone says. I think that they should have made the NCAA tournament. That was just very saddening on their behalf. But it is what it is, and that's just how. And they eventually wound up winning some hardware, which I thought was pretty darn cool, if you ask me. But for Bowling Green, they gave it a good effort. This was probably as good of an effort as any team will get against a Power 4 conference team. And Bowling Green had a fantastic run to the NIVC championship. My hope is for the NIVC, we get to see more teams involved, more teams that don't decline. I get it. You don't want to partake in a tournament that's not the national championship, but hey, postseason volleyball is good for your seniors who need one last hurrah before they ride off into the sunset. And why not add some hardware to your Hall of Fame and whatnot? I mean, it is what it is. It's just my opinion. If I were a coach in a team's shoes, but maybe sometimes too much volleyball is just too much volleyball. Like for instance, Cal Poly, they were just banged up overall. Their starting setter and their starting outside hitter were both out of their conference tournament championship, and I did not see the point of that team eventually going off to the big in terms of the NIVC. All right, but that is that for that little bit of the NIVC right there. It was fun to watch that matchup. It was a great little, I would hate to say appetizer, but honestly, I was very happy that I got to see that. And Arizona did a fantastic job of hosting, and it was a special end for Arizona, who wound up winning 11 straight matches to end off the season, which I thought was pretty darn cool, if you ask me. All right, now let's get on into my superlatives for the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament. So for those that read like yearbooks, you have this whole most likely to succeed, most likely to become president, best dressed, best smile, best everything and whatnot. So I have these superlatives for the NCAA women's volleyball tournament. I try to do these every year. I did it last year, and I do have and it's just for like teams. It's not going to be like for players and whatnot, because I don't want to like get the ideas of being mean to certain teams and whatnot. But I digress, because you never know who's watching. Just for reference, just in case the feds are watching, these are the thoughts and opinions of myself, and not of like any second, third, or fourth party organizations. And these are just for like entertainment purposes. They're not to like take digs at anybody or whatnot, or any team and whatnot. So the most outstanding team, which is kind of the equivalent of the yearbook's best overall, was Penn State. This is a no doubter. They wound up winning for their head coach, Katie Schumacher-Colley, who was battling stage 2 breast cancer. This seemed like a storybook ending for Penn State. This honestly could not have been scripted any better. And that comeback against Nebraska was absolutely phenomenal. I don't have words for that. That was just straight up amazing right there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's actually a perfect segue to go into my next superlative, best tournament match, Penn State versus Nebraska. And I guess an honorable mention would be Louisville versus Northern Iowa. Look, Penn State, Nebraska was all that in a bag of chips. If it was decided in 3 sets, I would have been disappointed. But thankfully, Penn State had a little bit more in them. They had one more set in them after they won that 4th set. And Emily Eamon said it best. It's never easy to reverse sweep any team, whether it's in the regular season and whether it's in the postseason, especially in a hostile environment like that, because Nebraska fans really traveled well. But Penn State made that comeback happen. They were gritty, they were resilient, and they really earned that win over Nebraska. Now, Louisville UNI, or Northern Iowa, that was a little bit of an underrated matchup right there. For being a round 2 matchup, this was definitely underrated. I think Northern Iowa actually had it in them, but they did actually play Louisville in the regular season, and it is tough to beat a team 2 times, let alone 3 times, in the regular season. So I thought for Louisville, they made everyone's heart rate go up, even for those that were watching not in person or watching remotely or watching in person. But yeah, that was a very entertaining round 2 match. That was probably the best round 2 match by far. It was the most points in a 5th set. Most of the other 5th set matches were probably decided by more than 2, except for Nebraska, Penn State. So there's that superlative. Then we have the best team that overachieved, Missouri. This one's a no-brainer. The fact that Missouri went on the road and beat SMU very handily was just downright impressive. Everyone was thinking, oh, SMU is going to be advancing to face Pitt in a rematch. This is going to be awesome sauce. SMU was the only team that beat Pitt, and they're going to have a nice chance to avenge one of their losses and possibly knock out Pitt. Nope. Missouri was able to make that happen. Honestly, Missouri was a very pleasant surprise. Dawn Sullivan deserves a lot of credit for how hard she's worked with her team and how she's transitioned very well in terms of like her new role as the head coach of Missouri, as opposed to being at UNLV. Like, she turned UNLV around very nicely, but she's really turned Missouri around quite nicely. They won an NCAA tournament match last year, and then they won 2 this year, advanced to the Sweet 16. And keep in mind, SMU was the only 2 seed from the regionals to fall in the 2nd round. So for Missouri to do that was darn impressive. And then my biggest surprise team was Dayton. So Dayton, if you saw Dayton's schedule, they did not play and finish against any opponents from any Power 4 conferences. They played against Ohio State, but never got to finish that match because of gym conditions and whatnot. So, and their lone loss was to they had 2 losses going into the NCAA tournament. They lost to Loyola Chicago, which they had to get in as an at-large, and then they lost to a non-conference opponent. So you had that right there. I was concerned about Dayton going into the NCAA tournament. I didn't think they were battle-tested. Obviously, they lost to Loyola Chicago. I thought they were going to get I had them one and done against South Carolina, but man, did they prove me wrong. And yeah, they also beat Baylor to advance to the their first ever Sweet 16, which I'll get into in a little bit. Unfortunately, Dayton's run kind of got halted in the round of 16 where they lost their setter, Alyssa Miller. Well, she wasn't lost, but she did get hurt. She had a strained hamstring, and she was fortunate to come back and play in the rest of the match, but she just was not 100%, and she just had limited mobility. So, yeah, Dayton was a surprise team, and the fact that they made it to their first ever Sweet 16 was amazing. It's just that they just ran to a buzzsaw on the road, mind you, against Nebraska. But hey, at least they took a set off Nebraska. All right, now we got to go into the teams that underachieved. And keep in mind that these negative superlatives are not really like jabs at certain teams. It's just my thoughts and opinions. But the teams that underachieved, in my opinion, were Arizona State and Kansas. So, yeah, Kansas I had high hopes for just because they were pretty much top 15 throughout most of the season. But they just, I mean, they did lose to a Florida team, which was led by Kennedy Martin, who was just straight up phenomenal all season. But yeah, Kansas, once again, they just could not win on their home floor in the regional, in the second round, which I thought was a little disappointing because I thought Kansas was better than that. But I don't think they would have gone past the second round. And this, again, no jab, no offense to Kansas, but they just underachieved in my opinion. And Arizona State, they had Jelly Sear as well as Mary Scholl on their roster, but they wound up losing to Texas A&M, which did wind up pushing Wisconsin to 5 sets in the round of 16 match. But I will say, I expected a little better from them. Some even had Arizona State in the Elite Eight, but unfortunately, Arizona State just could not keep up with the likes of Texas A&M, which Texas A&M deserves a lot of credit on their season. That they deserve a lot of, like, they probably could be in the category of the team that most underachieved or most overachieved as well. But I kind of gave it to Missouri because I don't think anyone projected Missouri into the round of 16 except for one person that follows me on X, but I digress. All right, now for the most disappointing teams, and again, no disrespect to any of these teams. They're BYU, SMU, and the entire Big 12 for not making it out of the round of 32. So SMU is kind of self-explanatory. Everyone was hyping up SMU because they were the 10th overall seed. They were having a fantastic season. They took down Nebraska. They were the only team that took down Pitt in the regular season. Everyone was just hyping SMU to being this big bad wolf that could take down Pitt possibly in the Elite Eight. But they didn't even make it to the round of 16. They lost the round of 32 to Missouri. This was disappointing by my standards, in my opinion. I just could not believe it. I don't think anyone believed it. But SMU losing in the round of 32, that was very disappointing, especially since they were at home and they just could not get the job done. And a lot of their players, they have some darn good players on their team. They're not just a team that stumbled into success by accident, but they just didn't look like the SMU that I thought they would be. But honestly, I had SMU losing in the round of 30 or in the round of 16 to Kentucky, if you want my honest opinion. And then another disappointing team, which kind of ties into the entire conference, was BYU. But BYU deserves its own little segment. BYU, unfortunately, was disappointing due to the fact that they were very successful under Heather Olmstead when it came to first-round NCAA tournament matches. And I learned this the hard way, I think, 1 or 2 years ago I think it was last year when I picked James Madison to beat BYU, and BYU wound up demolishing James Madison. But this time, BYU, their first-round matchup, they took on Loyola Chicago, and Loyola Chicago, which had not won a NCAA tournament match, wound up beating them. And they didn't just beat them, they swept them. That was the reason why I put BYU in the most disappointing category. And then the Big 12 as a whole, basically not making it out of the round of 32. Look, I get it. NCAA tournament, anything could happen. Any team can be any team. Everyone's 0-0. I get it. But this is a Power 4 conference. I haven't seen anything this jaw-dropping since the Big 10 there was no Big 10 teams in the national semifinals 2 years ago when Texas wound up winning the first of back-to-back championships. So the fact that the entire Big 12 failed to make it out of the round of 32, and there were some good hosts. There was Arizona State, there was Kansas. I just couldn't believe that and Baylor as well in the first 2 rounds. I just couldn't believe they couldn't get out of that round of 32. And I guess TCU as well, but most actually had TCU losing to Hawaii, but I digress. All right, but that's that for most disappointing. And then my most historic teams in terms of my superlatives, Loyola Chicago, Creighton, and Dayton. So first and foremost, okay, I kind of alluded this to Dayton. They advanced to their first ever regional semifinal for the first time ever, which I thought was pretty darn good. Creighton advanced to its second ever regional final or Elite Eight, which I thought was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, they just fell to Penn State. If they won that third set, maybe it's a whole different outcome, but we'll never know. Penn State is losing. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, had a little bit of air went down the wrong pipe. But yeah, Creighton unfortunately just did not. They caught a bad break in that third set against Penn State, and they just couldn't recover. And Creighton's going to get hit hard in terms of graduation, but I trust Coach Kirsten Bernthal Booth. I think she's going to get Creighton back up to the big stage sooner rather than later. And then Loyola Chicago, this was kind of self-explanatory. They wound up winning their first ever NCAA tournament match, which I thought was pretty darn cool. And that's kind of the reason why I have them in the most historic team of the NCAA tournament, or at least one of the three. All right, but that's that for my superlatives. What are your best superlatives from the NCAA women's volleyball tournament in terms of like teams or players and whatnot? Just let me know down in the comment section, or maybe just let me know in the live chat room. I would greatly appreciate it. And my boy Marcus Losgreat says, salute to you too, good sir. Thank you for tuning in. And Marcus actually asked me this last year. I remember he asked, will Texas repeat? Well, they didn't repeat, but Texas will be back. But salute to my boy Marcus Losgreat. I appreciate you for tuning in. So we're going to take ourselves one last commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing some NCAA men's volleyball and when the NCAA women's volleyball of the 2025 season is going to start. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, New York? This is Ricky K coming at you with the NY State of Sports, a new show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Listen to me every Thursday afternoon as we bring you the latest takes on the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Plus, you get some college hoops and what's the local sports events going on in the area. It's a state that never sleeps, so why not get the opinions and sports takes that never sleep? Again, every Thursday, 2 p.m. to the NY State of Sports. We'll see you then.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at Sin City @Kale_IESR. And you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, @Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always willing to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the final part of this episode of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out our amazing shows such as New York State of Sports and Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson. Also got to give a congratulations to Cale Henderson. I don't think I did, but in case I didn't, he and his wife gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and they are doing well. And it looks like Cale's going to be on a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm sure they'll find a little bit of a temporary replacement for Sin City Sports. So happy that Cale is doing well. He's also a native of Nebraska, so show him some love. Show him and Sin City Sports some love. But let's get on back into the final portion of this show. So this NCAA women's volleyball season was absolutely amazing. 2025 NCAA women's volleyball season is not too far, as it's only 242 days away. But the first week of the NCAA women's volleyball season in 2025 will be on August 22nd. And it'll actually take place at the Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. So the AVCA announced that the First Serve Showcase is coming back, which I think was pretty cool. It was actually just a one-day event. It just featured Louisville versus Nebraska, Louisville versus Wisconsin, and then Nebraska versus Kentucky. Go figure. Just featured red teams. But First Serve Showcase is back, and this time it'll be held in Lincoln, Nebraska. So great job right there, having that as your location, because volleyball is big in Nebraska. But this time it's going to have not just 4 teams. It's going to be like a 3-day event, which I think is going to be really cool if you ask me. So this was actually released courtesy of Pat Henderson. So yeah, it's going to be 6 matches over the span of 3 days. So it's probably going to be 2 matches per day, which I think is pretty cool right there. It's going to be on August 22nd, and it'll go through till August 24th. So it'll basically be a 3-day weekend. So if you're in the Nebraska area, definitely go to that. It's going to feature, according to this, it says it's going to be featuring some of the top 8 teams from the national semifinals. So yeah, the 2024 AVCA, blah, 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 blah. All 4 teams reached the regional finals of this year's NCAA championship, with the Cardinals and Huskers advancing to the national semifinals. Highlights included Louisville's over Kentucky, blah, 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 blah. So from what I'm hearing, they haven't really finalized the teams on who's going to be partaking, but from what I am hearing, it's probably going to be some of the top 8 teams from this past season. So probably Penn State, Nebraska, Pitt, Louisville. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Pitt versus Penn State and then Louisville versus Nebraska to start the season. And then maybe we get maybe Kentucky in there. Kentucky made the Elite 8. Then you also had Stanford as well. Then you also had Creighton as well. That would be an interesting concept to see Creighton in this little shindig, especially since they don't have to go too far. And then we would also have Wisconsin as well. So the teams aren't finalized, but I did hear that it's going to be some of the top 8 teams that made it into the national semifinals or from this year. So don't quote me on it. It's just from what I've heard. But yeah, only 242 days away from the AVCA First Serve Challenge, which I'm going to say this. I always say this, but I never really do this. I hope I get to go to this challenge. I really want to, first and foremost, go to an NCAA women's volleyball opening day thing. I mean, I did go to an opening day from when Long Beach State took down Texas. That was fun and all. However, I want to go to a big-time event. I mean, again, it was cool seeing Long Beach State upset the number 1 team and reigning national champion, but going to Nebraska would be so awesome. Lincoln, Nebraska is one of my big things to go to. And it says Pinnacle Bank Arena. Is that the same? I'm no Nebraska expert, but is that the same thing as the Bob? Either way, if it is, then I can't. I'm gonna go to it regardless. But yeah, it seemed pretty weird if you ask me. Yeah, Pinnacle Bank Arena is. Yeah, it is located in Nebraska and whatnot. Everyone knows this already. Blah 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 blah. But is the universe? Yeah, it's. Yeah, it is located on the campus of University of Nebraska. Yeah, it is the official. But maybe the Bob Devaney Center is basically the court and whatnot, or what it's named after. I don't know. All I just saw in the press. I'm just hoping it's not something smaller than the Bob. If it is, then we riot. I'm kidding. But yeah, the Pinnacle Bank Arena. I think it is 470,400 square feet, and it was created for basketball in mind, but you also got to take into consideration volleyball. So cool. But anyway, this is bigger than the Bob, or if it's the same thing, then so be it. But honestly, that's where the AVCA First Serve Challenge is going to be held at. So that little bit of volleyball news right there, but we still have over 200 days until the NCAA women's volleyball season begins in 2025, so we'll see. All right, but that's that for the NCAA women's volleyball season altogether, and all we got left to look forward to is off-season news, transfers, and whatnot, and maybe some schedule releases. Anyway, so coming soon will be the inaugural season of LOVB and the 2025 Pro Volleyball Federation season, which obviously they got an expanded team. They expanded to 7 teams. They added the Indy Ignite, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So yeah, they've got more teams involved, which I thought is pretty cool. I think they have 8 teams because they have the Omaha Supernovas, the Grand Rapids Rise, the San Diego Mojo, the Atlanta. They have Atlanta. The Atlanta. It's not the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Rise. I think. Why am I blanking on this name and whatnot? But yeah, they've got that. They've got the Columbus Fury. They've got the Orlando Valkyries. So on and so forth. So in case, yeah, they have 8 teams in the Vegas Thrill. So yeah, Atlanta Vibe. That's their name. I've been watching too much Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta other thing. But yeah, the Atlanta Vibe, Columbus Fury, Grand Rapids Rise, Indy Ignite, Omaha Supernovas, Orlando Valkyries, San Diego Mojo, and Vegas Thrill. So yeah, we've got those leagues coming up here. I'm definitely going to try to cover those to the best of my ability. Now, LLVB is going to be interesting because they've already got their teams finalized, but, well, maybe not finalized, but either way, they've got their teams finalized. The rosters are not finalized, but we'll see how that pans out. And they've got exclusive deals when it comes to like certain like broadcast sites. Like I think they might be on ESPN Plus and whatnot. I know Pro Volleyball Federation is going to be on FS1 and FS2, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So you have that right there, and then LOVB is going to be growing pretty rapidly as well, especially since they just signed Jess Merzick to one of their teams, which I think is pretty darn cool. And she was just named the most outstanding player of the NCAA tournament. But there's that right there. And also coming soon to volleyball courts near you, the 2025 NCAA men's volleyball season. Speaking of NCAA men's volleyball, if you haven't watched my Charlie Wade interview, my one-on-one Charlie Wade interview, do so. I will say I did run into some technical difficulties. I was unaware of this, but my camera unfortunately didn't fully focus in on me, and I looked a little blurry to start the whole thing. So I wasn't distorted or anything, but I don't know how my camera was just making me look so bad. But other than that, it was a fun interview with Charlie Wade. Thank you to Charlie Wade for being a guest on Set Point Extra Points and for letting me interview him. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, NCAA men's volleyball 2025 season is right around the corner. I don't know if this is fully confirmed, but Friday, January 3rd is when the season begins. We're going to have matchups like Ball State versus Wabash. I think that's going to be the first match of the season. And then you've got BYU versus Ohio State. That's going to be a fun matchup. And then you've got Hawaii hosting McKendree to pretty much close out the first day of the 2025 NCAA men's volleyball season. So I think it's going to be fun times as well. So there's that right there. There's that's something to look forward to if you're a volleyball head like me. And if you haven't been following on Instagram, my boy Mason Briggs, former Long Beach State men's volleyball standout and former Set Point guest, who was on Set Point Extra Points, he actually released a video basically wanting to help promote the NCAA men's volleyball. I couldn't agree more. Let's grow NCAA men's volleyball. That's going to be one of my big goals for 2025, to help grow NCAA men's volleyball, to be an outlet. I don't care if I'm small time or not. I don't care if I'm not big time. I'm going to try to grow NCAA men's volleyball to the best of my ability. And if it means I also got to ask for help, then so be it. And I even reached out to Mason, showing him a little bit of a clip of what Charlie Wade had to say in regards to needing NCAA men's volleyball to grow. Because I promise y'all, I really want NCAA men's volleyball to grow. I mean, Vinny Lopes does an excellent job with it, with Off the Block. Rob Aspero also does a great job with Viral Volleyball Podcast when he's not busy being either a PA announcer or he's on the play-by-play of a broadcast with like UC Irvine or whatnot. But yeah, I really want to try to help grow NCAA men's volleyball, and I really want to help put out more content because NCAA men's volleyball needs that voice. Let's not beat around the bush. NCAA men's volleyball needs that social media personality. They need someone to not just put screenshots on Instagram, but actually post on a weekly basis, and not just post when it's the NCAA men's volleyball tournament, and sometimes not even post at all. And that's something that Mason Briggs brought up. And lots of people are saying they'll run the NCAA men's volleyball account. I'll run the NCAA men's volleyball account, even though I don't think that's possible. But I'm going to do my part to grow NCAA men's volleyball. If it means like having more interviews with like coaches and maybe some players, then that works too. We got to get the word out to grow NCAA men's volleyball. We have to carry the success from NCAA women's volleyball over to NCAA men's volleyball, because NCAA men's volleyball, I get it. Everyone says the rallies are short and whatnot. It's not as overly exciting as NCAA women's volleyball, but it's still just as exciting. You got thunderous monster blocks. You've got big back row bit kills. You've got amazing booming service aces and whatnot. And I get it, liberos don't serve like NCAA women's volleyball or women's volleyball in general. But honestly, it's still volleyball, and it deserves the recognition that NCAA women's volleyball gets, because NCAA women's volleyball pretty much had a nationally ranked match practically every week, which whether it was on like Big Ten Network or SEC Network or ESPNU or whatnot. Unfortunately, NCAA men's volleyball doesn't seem to get the national recognition until like maybe the postseason, which really disappoints me. I think NCAA men's volleyball deserves at least one nationally televised match per month. So again, that's just my opinion. And also, I know this is an this is a volleyball podcast or a volleyball show, but it needs an official the NCAA men's volleyball needs an official NCAA men's volleyball show, just like the AVCA has 6 rotations. Why can't the AVCA have an NCAA men's volleyball show? Why can't they have a 6 rotation-esque show like they do for NCAA women's volleyball? Those are the things that I wonder. Like, NCAA men's volleyball just needs the same growth and recognition like NCAA women's volleyball does, and maybe NCAA beach volleyball too. And I guess another thing would be not to have the NCAA beach volleyball tournament and the NCAA men's volleyball tournament on the same weekend, because that just coincides with a lot of like volleyball content creators and volleyball media people and whatnot. So food for thought. But yeah, let's grow NCAA men's volleyball. Let's hashtag NCAA MVB. So yeah, hashtag NCAA MVB. That's the correct vernacular to help grow NCAA men's volleyball. And I promise y'all, I'm going to be putting out content. I'm going to be putting out, I guess I'll make this exclusive to everybody. I'll be putting out some storylines to watch for the NCAA men's volleyball season. I'll be putting out the top matches to watch for every week. I promise y'all that'll be back this upcoming season. Maybe I'll do something more special than just have a team of the week that I just post on X. Maybe I'll kind of take a page out of the Michaela Chester book and have a starting rotation of the week for NCAA men's volleyball. I mean, it's gonna require me to like dig really deep, no pun intended, into like all of the NCAA men's volleyball matches, and not just like the Power Four conferences with like the Big West, the EIVA, the MIVA, and the MPSF, but for like every conference, even the small conferences like the Conference of Carolinas and whatnot. So there's that right there. But NCAA men's volleyball has pretty much released all of its preseason coaches polls for like the conferences, and that's actually going to entail to next week's show. So next week's show, I'm going to be previewing the Power Four conferences of NCAA men's volleyball. So that means the Big West, the EIVA, the MIVA, and the MPSF. As much as I would like to include the other conferences like the Conference of Carolinas that I just mentioned and whatnot, I just think that would make this show a little bit longer than expected. And also, I just don't want people to tune out. Let's be honest, everyone really fully cares when it comes to like NCAA men's volleyball. Everyone fully cares about the Big West, which had two teams in the national semifinals, the MIVA, which had Ohio State in the national tournament from last year, the EIVA, which had Penn State in the national tournament, and the MPSF, which had UCLA in it, as well as Grand Canyon, which both teams represented very well. But all in all, for NCAA men's volleyball, that's something to look forward to for next week. And then that's pretty much that for NCAA men's volleyball. Again, let's try to grow the game of NCAA men's volleyball. And I'm down to collaborate with other volleyball content creators. Like, I will definitely be down to do that and do their part to help grow them and for them to help grow me and to overall grow NCAA men's volleyball. All right, but that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I really do appreciate you. I will be back next week for Set Point, but I will be in a different location, and it's probably going to be a much earlier time. I think I'm going to do the show at like 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, which I know that may seem a little bit awkward for like some people who are trying to either A, enjoy family time, B, that are just getting off work, C, and trying to enjoy college football because of the bowl games, or D, all of the above. But you'll have to basically wait and see. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the week. Happy holidays, whether you're celebrating Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, or anything of that sort. Happy holidays from me, Teran Rodriguez, to you all. I really do appreciate it. Have yourself a great and safe holiday. Have it with your loved ones and whatnot. And also try to be courteous to people that work in retail. They're sacrificing their Christmas to basically work and make ends meet. So that's my recommendation for you all. But have a great rest of the week. Happy holidays. And I will see you next week for the last episode of 2024. Have a great week, everybody. Peace.